Good night and welcome to DLP TV. The theme for tonight is new candidates, new vision, our future is bright. With me tonight are the new candidates, Mr. Ensley Grainger for St. Michael East and David Waldron, JP, for St. George North. With me tonight are the new candidates, Mr. Ensley Grainger for St. Michael East and David Waldron. Sorry about that, I had technical difficulties. Now I'm going to ask each candidate to tell the viewers a little bit about themselves, starting with MC Grainger.
Good night to the TV viewers, Barbados and the diaspora. As Malissa said, I am Ensley Grainger. I am an attorney at law. Let me first, but rather say that I am indeed humble and proud to be the candidate for the Democratic Labour Party representing the constituents of St. Michael East. St. Michael East is no stranger to me, having been born and raised in the district of Kitchborne, Howells Cross Road. I've gone to school at Belmont and St. Giles before going on to Parkinson. I played my cricket, football on Blenheim, Erie, which is now the community college field. So St. Michael East is near and dear to me.
Yes. Good evening, viewers, and I want to say good evening to those in the diaspora. My name is David Walrond, and I am the candidate for the St. George North constituency. I want to say how proud I am and how happy I am to have been selected to be the candidate for this constituency. St. George North is where I was born, where I've been raised, and it is where I presently reside. It is a place where my heart is very dear to. I have done clubs, played cricket in St. George North. I've been in cultural groups in St. George North. It is where I became the chairman of the district emergency organization and served the people in St. George North. I've also worked with the Constituency Council in St. George North. And I can say to you that I intend to carry on my service to the people of St. George North through the Democratic Labour Party.
Okay, so would you say having been in the constituency before for many years has given you an advantage when you're canvassing the constituents?
Oh, yes. The exposure through the DLP, to the DEO must, to me, would have been the real catalyst to my exposure in the constituency, because they would have done things like bulk waste cleanup within certain communities in St. George North. We would have done cleanups in like Charles Road Bridge, which is a flood-prone area, where we would have cleaned around the canal area where we generally get a lot of flooding. And especially around hurricane season, the DEO becomes a very active group. We are we are basically expected to be engaged to make sure that the community is prepared, is ready for the hurricane season generally, and mitigate any situations that could occur. We also are responsible for making sure that the shelters in the area are ready. And we also have teams within the DEO that is responsible for things like road clearance, first aid, transportation, making sure that whatever happens to the communities in St. George North, that we have teams and a mechanism in place to keep St. George North going. So the DEO is a very important aspect, and I'm sure that it would have played a vital role in my exposure to the constituents in the community. Outside of that, I can also say that my exposure came through church, being a member of the church, the Adventist church from 12 years old, going out doing outreach programs and gathering and other programs associated with the church. I would have been exposed to a lot of communities and a lot of people within the constituency.
Okay. And Grainger, you mentioned that you went to 2 schools in your constituency, Belmont and St. Giles, and you also grew up there. How have those connections helped you with connecting with the constituents?
Yeah, I said, from the viewpoint that I don't have to struggle with the community. I know it. I've lived it. And so therefore, I know the boundaries. I know probably somebody in maybe every district of the constituency. So from that point of view, yes, there is a slight advantage, but nonetheless, the work still has to be put in, and we still have to touch base with each and every constituent to secure that victory for the Democratic Labour Party.
All right. Well, when you mentioned church, you're active at the Adventist Church.
Yes.
You're also on the board.
Was.
Was.
Yeah.
Okay. How has the church molded you and shaped you as an individual?
I like that question, because I would encourage everybody to get a little bit of church in their life, because for me, I became a more grounded individual through the religious teachings of the Adventist Church, and my love for God grew because of the knowledge imparted by the Adventist Church. Even my health policies, my attitude towards my own health became more solid being part of that church. And the truth is, I can say without question or without doubt that I don't know if I'll be here had it not been for my journey, my sojourn within the Adventist Church. That's the truth.
Grainger, what are your experiences with the church community?
Well, from young, and I'm still very much active in church today, let me say to all viewers, I am not ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ. I am not ashamed. Because the Bible said, if you disown me before your peers, then I will just disown you before the Father. Maybe not in those words, but the essence of it is the same. So from an early age, church was not a choice, not an option. So I went to church. There was church in the Bell Tenant. We go to in the mornings. Then on afternoons, about 3:30, we are trekking, going across Blenheim Pasture, out to Mayor's Road, Lighthouse, Pentecostal Church, that still exists, to Sunday school. And then at those 2 churches, at harvest time, recitations was the order of the day. Presently, I am still a regular worshiper at Restoration Ministries in Constituency Road, Brazil. And I believe, as Comrade David said, we really can't do it without God. Whether we want to believe it or not, that is my view. And I think that having come through from that early age and the grounding in the church, I I think it has played a significant role in the person and the character of the person that I am today.
Okay. So normally we would hear about women balancing family and the professional life. Both of you are married and have children. Both of you work.
Mm-hmm.
So as men, how are you managing the family life and the professional life?
More so, I have worked generally over the last 30 years for myself, generally, except for my sojourn through teaching from 2000 to 2007. And there was no difficulty because my daughter only came about around 2002. So at that time I was teaching and balancing, the balancing act was easy because my wife was always there. We worked together. We worked together as a team, and it made life so much easier for all of us. And as the man, I would always try to make sure that she wasn't burdened. Right. So I always took fathering very, very seriously, and it is important that as a man, as men, that men play the role in family, that men make sure that the family is not only safe but secure, including being secured financially. The man, we have serious roles to play in the lives of our women, and there's no excusing away the role we have to play if we really want to be the head of the home.
Grainger?
Balancing work and family.
Yeah, work and family.
I have been fortunate, but I am fortunate now not to have any cradle ones. But early on, it was balanced, and it could only have been balanced through the help, really, of my wife. In that I had a lot of time away from home. So as a policeman, in my former district, you're away from home many hours, long hours. So sometimes you go on to work, children are sleeping, you come home, they're still sleeping. So there were times when days could pass without you really having that that connection with them. But when the opportunities arose, then they were very well spent. But without a caring mother, caring wife to look after the young ones, then I am gone. That really played a big part in the work and family balancing the act, so to speak.
We have a comment online from Patricia Calendar. So good to hear these strong, family-oriented, spiritual men. Yes, we need good men, strong, good men these days.
Thank you.
So we seem to have a lot of cricketers in this political party. Both of these guys next to me have played cricket. So could you tell us how sports has impacted their life?
I can say I played cricket, yes, but I was more a supportive cricketer than a star. I'm being very honest. And I would always turn up the cricket and I would always play the game, but I would generally be the wicket keeper. And you know, when I get to bat, generally I did the stars down when the match ready, or I help join it to help them lose it. So I would have had some interesting cricket days, but cricket for me was more than just winning or losing. It was an opportunity to be with the guys. It was an opportunity to do something that you might not have been the best at, but something you enjoyed. Cricket for me, was a very serious social outing. I don't know if I was ever really interested in becoming a cricket star, but I felt good with the bat in my hand, especially when the fellas ain't bowling too fast. Right? And my sporting days, I mentioned cricket, but I probably enjoyed football a lot more at school, at Commonwealth. I played for the school a couple of times, and I really enjoyed football a lot more. Don't mind you, I didn't get as many players as I would have wanted, but I enjoyed watching the fellas play.
Grainger, how has sports impacted you?
Well, sports, at my time of coming up, sports was every young man's dream.
Oh, yes.
These pastors that we see now that cows grazing on, we were the ones grazing these pastors.
Oh, I tell you.
Cricket and football, you know, and but cricket was big for me.
Yeah.
I captained St. Giles School, at what was then the equivalent to the Everton Weeks or the Herman Griffith, right? I captained St. Giles. Then there's an innings of 76 that some of my schoolmates that saw it still talk about today. A short field innings. as an 11-year-old.
Oh, yes.
But then I went to Parkinson. I played round 3 for maybe one or two seasons. But after that, my interest in cricket moved away, and it returned on the birth of my son, because any father would want, and know the cricket would want his son to come up in his footsteps, and he excelled above me. But as I said, it was renewed with his birth. I watched him play the Herman Griffith, and then into under 13 at Combermere, under 15 where he captained, and then as a member of the Wanderers Youth Program, then that rekindled my interest again, and I took back up the bat and the pads and played about three or four seasons at Wanderers in the 2nd division. I remember playing one game against Comrade Leader, and he was playing for UE. He didn't do very much, but I was able then to bring the team to victory at that. So sports, though, helps to build you, because it takes away. There's not this selfishness. You play for your team, and therefore, whatever you do, you seem to embrace everybody in that.
Agree.
Oh, we have another comment online from Esther Blue. Nice of you, Mr. Grainger, to compliment your wife on her double role as wife and mother.
Thank you, Esther.
So the big question all of our constituents would want to ask us is, why politics? Why have you gotten involved in politics?
Politics. I went to school with a gentleman called David Thompson. I remember David Thompson was ahead of me, and as a youngster, everybody knew who David Thompson was. And I remember when David Thompson went into 6th form, I remember him moving from 6th form back to being a teacher. And David Thompson actually taught me geography. And that's one of the subjects I passed. So, which question was again?
Why politics?
Why politics, right. I got involved in politics because when I look around and I see the persons, the type of characters and their backgrounds and where they come from in politics, I begin to wonder why persons that come from a certain background in society don't want to get involved in politics. Because in my mind, the average Joe don't want to get involved in politics. And there's the saying that politics is dirty and all this kind of thing. My whole issue with that is that I know my character. And I know what politics needs. If I think politics is a dirty game, I will make an effort to clean it up. My role in politics is to bring some decency and some genuine love for people back into politics. We got a situation in this country where people do a good campaign. Some people spend a lot of money. Money flies. You see more money than flies moving around at election time. And people vote because of money. And then after election, the representative goes missing. The last representative passed the baton and they drop it. They don't take it up and run with the constituency at all. And that's the problem right now in St. George North. We have a representative who does not represent. And people are concerned that issues that mean something to the constituents are not being dealt with. They're not being heard. There's nobody to listen to them. They went twice and they trusted this person with the job of taking care of the constituency. And that person have not come to work yet. And that's a sad place to be in the history of politics at this time in this country. And that is one of the reasons I choose politics. I mean, I've been involved before, but now it's more important than the past. The past is gone. But right now, I am here because I can see the void. There's a void. There's a massive void in St. George North politics. I was having a discussion today with the support of the other side. And he himself was concerned about the void. Mind you, you probably go and work back for the void again. But my reality is that there's a void. The people are not being represented right now. And I am putting myself out there to fill that void, just like how I dealt with it with the DEO, just like how I served the people under the DEO, just like how I served the people as in the Constituency Council. I am putting myself out there to carry on the service that I have already started.
Excellent. And we have another comment from CD. It is impressive and refreshing to see the caliber of male candidates that the Democratic Labour Party is presenting to the public, men of moral character and spiritual grounding. Another comment from Brenda Seeley. As a Christian myself, I am delighted to have these godly candidates. I pray God's favor over you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Grainger, the question for you is, why politics?
As a youngster coming up, let me say I was born and raised in an Barbados house. So politics then grew in me. As time progressed, the name Dr. Ramsey Scadle, who I think represented St. Michael, it wasn't St. Michael East then, but he, as the representative in that part of the constituency, he was also pivotal in that. Then there was Don Blackman, who we all came to brew and to love Dawn for what people used to say, the big words. But politics, though, for me, it just gives me another opportunity to serve, to be of service to country, and to the people of St. Michael East, of whom I present myself as the candidate. Politics for me is not about fame. It's not about money. Politics for me is that love to do something to uplift someone in need and to see the advancement of a person, to bring them from the bottom as far up as they can go. It's about providing opportunities and seeking to provide opportunities for people that they too can feel a sense of belonging. But this journey here today as the candidate for St. Michael East, it has a lot of things to it. I used to laugh all the time when people come and say, man, we want you to be the candidate. I laugh all the time because I said, no. But then situations start to unfold, and it was no choice for me to be here. So I think that it is more predestined. It was ordained. Maybe one never know the road that life's journey will take. And but I am happy, as I said earlier. I am heartened and I am humbled to be here, to be of service again to country and to the people whom I will get the opportunity to be their parliamentary representative.
You could be a representative in any political party. So why did you choose the Democratic Labour Party as your choice?
I like that question a lot. My mother was a single parent. She had 4 of us. 1 has passed. My mother would always say, "I'm not for Arabara, I can send one to school." And that was her anthem. And based on that, and then my association with Thompson and other persons that were, because we had some good people in St. George North, like Comrade Basil Forbes. And we got a good man that came out of St. George North called Ulrich Seeley. Those men were great mentors. Mind you, I'm going to say this now because you don't have to ask it after you finish what I have to say. I sojourned away from the DLP for whatever reason, but I never lost touch. I can say that I have never said a bad word about this party because as I was out there, there's always something pulling me. And I always realize that no matter what happens within the DLP, I will not be one to pull down Arabara's party. Not in any way. And the DLP has done well in situations where the country was taken down a particular road. The DLP always seemed to be the party that have to pull it back. Mm-hmm. Right now, we're in a situation where we got to get that pull back. The public knows, Bajans know that they have to give the DLP a chance to stop this getaway train. Barbados is running down the track too fast, out of control. We're losing Barbados. And the DLP is the party that has to put the brakes on this getaway train. The reality is that Bajans are crying out. And I chose to join the DLP because I want to be part of the breaking, the stopping of this getaway train because it's going to crash if we don't be careful.
Excellent. Grainger, why did you choose the Democratic Labour Party as your preference?
But the Democratic Labour Party has always been my party of choice. It is the only party whose philosophy and ideology align with my view of what is necessary. The Democratic Labour Party has always been a party that looks after the interests of the people and to seek to uplift people. When we look at what the Democratic Labour Party would have done, and the implementation of free secondary education, what else could you want of a party than that? And I think we all, despite the fact of whether you are a member of the Democratic Labour Party or the Barbados Labour Party, all owe a gratitude to the Barbados Labour Party and the late national hero, Errol Walton Barrow.
Democratic
Party.
You said the Barbados, but I think you meant the Democratic Labour Party.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, let me repeat. I am saying that all persons, whether you are a member of the Democratic Labour Party or the Barbados Labour Party, if you are not politically disingenuous, you would have to say that you owe a sense of gratitude to the Democratic Labour Party under its leadership of the Right Excellent Errol Walton Barrow for the implementation of free education to the masses. And education is that vehicle that will move the poor man from the bottom to the top. And hence, with that, anyone who has any sense of coordination will see that with the Democratic Labour Party, and that if nothing else, free education would be the one to take the care.
Okay, we have a question from online. From Patricia Calendar. As family-oriented men, what vision on a small scale do you see for the youth?
Yes, that person was taking a peek at my notebook. And I have a vision for the youth in St. George North. You see, when you look around the community, I noticed that, like Grainger mentioned earlier, a lot of the community centers are closed by a certain time. A lot of them are. And a lot of the pastors are underutilized. We need to have serious programs for young people, children especially, school children at school age, the very impressionable age. As a teacher, I know how impressionable that secondary, when they move into secondary, I mean, they're probably better held at primary. But when they move into the secondary school system, my daughter will tell you all the time, that's when the pressure is on. Peer pressure is tremendous at secondary school. And we need to bring programs to communities and not just talk about bringing programs, because it's not expensive to do community programs. As long as you engage the community and you lead and you lead as a leader, and you as a politician, as a representative, let's say I was the representative of St. George North right now, I would know how to find the resources to fund programs for the children of St. George North. I would make sure that they are occupied in sports. We got children falling behind in education. As a teacher, I saw children at CXC level that couldn't, their literacy was questionable. Some of them was almost illiterate. They could not computate and tabulate properly. They could not read properly. Some of them even had problems with writing, how they wrote. Some wrote too small. You can understand what I had to, as a teacher, I spend a lot of time trying to help children to help them with some of the challenges they were having just before CXC. My vision as the representative for St. George North is to make sure that the children of St. George North have after school programs for children who are falling behind. The idea is not to let them fall behind, not to let them go into secondary school and can't read and write properly, because at that stage, you're teaching a lot faster. You're preparing children for CXC. You really can't do remedial while preparing children for CXC. So my whole idea is that we must have programs for children there, after school programs, especially for children that are falling behind. And for the youth in general, who we tend to blame for all the problems in this society right now, there's simple things. When I was younger, there was a man in St. George North called, they used to call him Flash Award. A nice man. He passed since, but he was a nice man. He started something called Under 16 cricket in Barbados. And I'm sure that awards programs, and he used to make sure the children, he used to take the children out to Coles Cave and these different places, because he became like a father figure to the boys in the Market Hill area. I can tell you that some of the boys were so excited. The first time some of them ever got to go to the cinema was with Mr. Ward. And the reality is we need some more Mr. Ward attitudes within the communities where we look out for the youth. That Under 16 cricket helped to keep us so busy. And then he came to the Under 19. Those tournaments kept us so busy. We had no time for foolishness. And we got a lot of great sports within the St. George North, within Barbados. Like, for example, we got checkers or draft. We know we call it checkers, we call it draft. Mm-hmm. I can tell you it's a good sport. I mean, I get beat bad all the time, but it's a good sport. And I got a brother as a draft champion. I'm sure he would be willing to go there and help teach young people how to become good at the game. We got things like road tennis. Road tennis is another good sport. All these sports needs to be promoted within communities and bring back a sports like community spirit back to this country, because it has held a lot of young people together and taken them away from lawlessness. So we need proper sports programs, evening classes, seasonal programs too. We got like Easter. Why let the children run around on Easter not have anything to do? Do Easter programs, do summer programs, do Christmas programs, whatever the programs are. Use these seasons to hold our children and keep them held together instead of letting them go under the tree and marinate. They can be doing things that mean something to the community and something that will help them better themselves.
Okay. So from canvassing in your constituency, what are some of the pressing issues that you have come across?
Well, this is the most pressing issue, and everybody knows it. You see, cost of living. It's a lot of things you can't do when you don't have money, especially in the society we live in. Nobody comes and give you anything. Cost of living will always be the most pressing issue, because you hear people complain about water delivery and garbage pickup. The conditions of the roads in St. George North are horrible. We just had a road fixed from 4 Roads, which is close to Sweetville, all the way down to, I think that went right into the turning or the roundabout by Lears. Mm-hmm. You know the road back in holes already, and the road isn't. The road is not even a year old yet. These are serious issues because we pay so much money in road tax. Sometimes I don't even like to go to the gas station. I mean, I hope somebody could come up with an alternative to gas. I ain't talking about electric, because you might go get a generator and go get used to charge your car anyhow. But the fact is, we are paying so much money in road tax in Barbados. And all the roads doing is mashing up the vehicles. Anybody that own a vehicle would tell you that within 2 years, you got to change bottom arms and stuff and broad ends and rack ends. Within a year, within 2 years, you got to change them twice minimum. And it's not good for taxpayers to have to live like this. We are most heavily taxed at this time. We have never been this taxed before, but yet our lifestyles are being hindered because we paying the taxes, the roads bad, the water delivery bad. But I mean, we are in a crisis right here in this country. We are in a crisis, and there's so much going on. People are unhappy with the bus service in St. George North. I can tell you that. Because sometimes I go in Market Hill and stand up with the guys and talk. And some of the guys who are talking to us are waiting on the bus. And I said, well, I'm going to wait till the bus come before I get on the road. And knowing that my daughter and wife waiting on me to come home, you know. And an hour later, I still there talking. And I said, man, look, I can go along left you because I can get in some trouble now. Because they're waiting on me to come home. Probably I went to the supermarket for something for them. They're waiting on me to come home. And I'm here keeping this guy's company until the bus comes. And many times I gotta leave the guy there because the bus ain't coming. So the reality is that the bus service is bad. If you got an important appointment, let me say you got a 9 o'clock appointment, leave home at 6 o'clock. Otherwise, you're gonna be embarrassed. The service is bad. And the people of St. George North know that the service is bad. And they complain about it. Garbage collection is sporadic. Sometimes you get a garbage collection this week and next week you see the truck again. You better raise your hand and say, Lord, I thank you. Because chances are 3 weeks later, you're going to see the garbage collection. The flies and things going all around your garbage. So the reality is that the inconsistent, sporadic services, social services, the people are complaining. They're not happy with them. And I'll say this, healthcare delivery. People are very concerned about healthcare delivery. People are afraid to go to the hospital. I actually hear my mother say, if anything happened to me, let me stay home and die. To hear my mother say that, I said, well, this is serious. Because nobody wants to go down there. The DLP had this place running far better than what it is right now. You know, why should people be afraid? Why should we be so heavily taxed? Yet the services, the social services are so bad. I don't know.
So Grainger, what are some of the pressing issues that you've seen in St. Michael East?
What I've seen, what is hurting is to see that in 2025, persons are still unable to have access to running water. For decimal clean, Lake Bush Village. Persons in urban Barbados in 2025 without running water to their homes. That means they have no waterborne toilets. And a constituency that has been favorable and very generous to the Barbados Department.
Oh, yes.
And this is the neglect that the residents for Decimal Clean Lake Bush Village are experiencing today. Yes, you will hear all these people, they build on the down here is a water zone, it's a zone 1 area, you can't this. But you know that there are houses on the same stretch. 2 houses may have water, and the rest don't have. Why? But on this same water zone, there's a geriatric hospital being built. And I am going to stick with this until I hear proper answers from the government. Why is it good for the geriatric hospital and not good for the poor people of Lake Bush Village and Decimal Clean to be able to have waterborne access to water and waterborne toilets. One man told me he has to run 200 to 300 feet of conduit from his house, up to a standpoint in 2025. Then there's the issue of roads, terrible roads. And the Barbados Labour Party's manifesto 2018, they talk about plus size potholes. I would carry them to Martinique and see the plus potholes. Martinique. You look at Rowing Road and the avenues, the ivy, neglect. You're looking at the constituency, it is the whole complexion of St. Michael East needs to be changed. That people can feel a sense of pride, not only in themselves, but in the community in which they live. They can feel now to entertain people at them houses, knowing that they don't feel ashamed of having them to go in the yard and use an toilet. So there are a lot of things that you're seeing people complain about the cost of living. Mm-hmm. And then we get now the ones who are up in age, the crying. People are fearful that they're living in a board house, that a bullet can come through the board and injure them. All these. So it is all right to talk, but where's the action? People out there are hurting. The struggle of the people out there, the struggles are real. The struggles are real. People are genuinely hurting. And I believe that more can be done for them. But under Ralph Thornley, Democratic Party, we will right the wrong.
Excellent. Well said. So David Waldron, I'm going to spend some time on you. So from 2000 until now, you've been a part of the disaster management training. Tell us about your role at DEO and what the DEO is all about.
The DEO is a special group of people who are selfless. The DEO is made up of a whole set of selfless people. I got a good friend called Ricky Yard. He's the chairman of the DEO right now. These fellas are selfless. When the storms start to blow, they pack their bags and they leave home to make sure that we have some sense of security and safety. They make sure that the shelters are ready and the cloths are up so that when people feel that their homes are going to be compromised, they can go into the shelters. The DEO for me, when I started in when the DEO really started back for us in St. George North, it was around 2000. And I started with a chairman called Jeffrey Cox, no deceased. Nice guy. And our first experience was Lily. I remember when Lily blew past Barbados, it damaged some properties. And our efforts, after Lily had passed and the all clear was given, the Royal Barbados Police Force at that time, because I can tell you something, they work very, very closely with the DEOs, and the DEOs work very closely with them. They sent a vehicle out, and they took, well, I was the deputy chairman at that time, and they took me and then we moved around to all the properties that the members of the DEO had reported back to our operations control, our control center. All the properties that were reported to us and by the teams that were out there. We got into this police vehicle and we drove around and we took a report on all the damaged properties to make sure that at that time, Zero had all the information on persons who would have suffered or suffered damages due to the passing of Lily. And when I saw that, when I realized that this is what we were actually doing, it gave me a sense of pride, knowing that we are there for persons in their most vulnerable state. When half a person house is blowing down, the belongings are exposed, they're exposed to the rain and the wind. It's a very vulnerable place to be. And I will advertise the DEO every time, because it's an important little grouping of people, and sometimes not so little, because the DEO at St. George North has grown exponentially, and we have gone through a lot of training. A lot of my training I had was through PAHO and disaster management training. Due to the disaster management training, I think that I would have had at PAHO, I was able to then either get training for the other members. We were always, one thing I can say about CERO, now DEM, is that they help us to understand the importance of the DEO in the community. And they have always stayed there with us. They didn't just say, well, look, enlist and let us go. DEM, as it is now called, has always stayed with the DEO, which is the branch, the community branch of the DEM. And they have always provided lots of training. And like I said, I was one of the fortunate ones too that had disaster management training with that organization. And the truth is, it has played a vital role in preparing, because we do a lot of mitigation. We're not just about the place blow down and we run up there and try to help people, but we do mitigation. Working with the police is always a good thing, because we understand the role the police play in not only disaster management, but in security in this country. And very often, when we have even situations like serious accidents, we are encouraged, the DEO, we have members who are put into action to assist the police in situations of serious accident, because the DEO members are very well trained. Because a lot of members who are first aid trained and certified on a yearly basis. And whenever there's a major situation, not just hurricane and storms, but things like a major accident, the DEO, members of the DEO are initiated or are put into action to assist with that. But our relationship with the police is very, very good. Whenever we need the services of the police, they're there for us, and vice versa. That group is always up and ready. And I believe the most active DEO is in St. George North.
All right, so in 2008, you were invited by the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development to consult on the nationwide eradication of the giant African snail. So tell us a little bit about that experience.
Well, I'm glad you got to that. That's my favorite experience within the DEO. The giant African snail program started almost by a joke. We were brainstorming one at a meeting, and my committee, and we were trying to figure out what can we do to give the DEO some leverage, to leverage the community, to help them to understand who we are and what we're about. But as chairman, I brought together my team and I said, well, look, let me see how we can get the community to know who we are, so when we go out, it's a lot easier. So when we need funds, then we can go to the community and raise these funds. One of my members, good friend of mine called Max and Bert, made it, I want to go there, pick up some snails. And he kind of said it like a joke. But almost a year later, we were at a meeting, and it was mentioned to me by Ricky Yard, who is the chairman of the DEO now. He said, David, You remember Max made a joke last year and said that we could go out there and pick up snails? I said, yeah, but it might be a good idea to actually do that. And from there, those men went into high gear. And we went around the communities in St. George North first, collecting snails and destroying snails. We were assisted by the Ministry of Agriculture. Let me speak properly. In the Ministry of Agriculture, at that time, the Chief Agriculture Officer was a man called Barton Clark. And we were introduced to entomologists Ian Gibbs and Brett Taylor. And they worked with us. They provided the bait. They provided some liquid sprays to help destroy these pests. And they didn't only give us the bait and the liquid, they gave us equipment like mist blowers and spray cans and stuff like that to disperse this thing into communities, into gullies and stuff like that. But they didn't only do that. They also took us in and gave us literature to understand the life cycle of the snail and how best to bait or spray the snail so that it'd be most effective. So we had a full education on the giant African snail. I can tell you, a lot of those members who were there at that time have so much knowledge of the life cycle and the behaviors of the African snail. I believe they can teach it in the school. But after we really started to do our community work as the DEO, the nation got wind and they came and they asked me about the snails. And one day I was in a place called Bridgecourt, St. George. Bridgecourt is a nice place. And actually I got the call and I said, well, meet me in Bridgecourt. Because I wasn't even sure they had snails in Bridgecourt. But he said, meet me in Bridgecourt. And I went over into Bridgecourt and went down into a gully area. And because I learned so much about the snails through the Ministry of Agriculture, even through UE, because we were working with a lady at UE, can't remember her name, but she used to be a candidate for the Democratic Party at one time, Patricia Ennis. And she assisted us too. So we had a lot of knowledge in regards to these. I told her about meet me in Bridgecourt. I didn't even know they had snails in Bridgecourt to that extent. And I took them down into a gully. And I talk a lot sometimes. And as I was talking, I said, man, all about here shooting snails, and they got snails. They had a kind of a palm plant right there in front of us. You could not see the snails. I took the palm out of some kind of, I don't know what it was, and I turned the palm leaf. On the side of the palm leaf were about 10 or 12 snails. I mean, because I noticed the leaf was bending a bit heavy. I turned it and I said, look, the journalists opened their mouth because they were shocked because they didn't know snails were under there, because I understand the behavior of the snails. So when I turned that leaf and showed them, then I went turned around and they said, look, this is where they hang out. Because down there was quite cold. And we got a front page story in the Nation. And then I can't remember the name of the institution that tend to buy these stories. I bought the story and it ended up in the Boston Globe. So then I started getting calls from all over the world. I was even encouraged to farm the snails. But then the minister at that time, Ensley, gave me a call because it was on the news now. CBC came and got on board. Everybody got on board. And he said, look, we need some help with these snails. These snails all over Barbados, right? He said, they tell us so he asked me to come up with a program where we can move around Barbados to help reduce the population. So that we did. Many mornings that I left my family at 2 o'clock in the morning and go into gullies around Barbados to help reduce the snail population.
Okay, we have a comment online from Scully Dog Kennels. These men have me feel real good. These is the men we want in the House Assembly. We children will really change in Barbados.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So my last question for you, you've been actively involved in helping entrepreneurs. So could you tell us a bit about the challenges that entrepreneurs face in Barbados and what can be done to assist them?
As an entrepreneur, as a businessman, let me put it down to that. I am actually a printer by profession. I came into the printing industry and I learned the skills. But in learning the skills, as I started my printing business, I found that a lot of persons were interested in the printing business. So I actually did management. So I actually use these skills to assist other printers. It might sound crazy that I'm assisting people who are going to compete against me. I don't see business as competition, because if you raise up 100,000 supermarkets, they all can get business. It's about how each business place do business will determine how much business they get or how their business will do. So when I entered that field, the printing industry, I did well. But unfortunately, as I was beginning to do too well in the eyes of some people, in the midst of an election, somebody saw it necessary to break into my place and burn it down. So I end up losing close to $5 million. But that's the nature of politics. I must probably say it. But I don't blame politics for that either. But the reality is that as an entrepreneur, a person who would have had training and management, stuff like that, I've always used my knowledge. I've always shared my knowledge with other business persons. I can call the name of printeries that I helped set up in Barbados. But I won't do that. And the important thing about entrepreneurship is that we don't need to be afraid of competition. We need to share knowledge. We need to share knowledge.
You ready? All right, so there's a change in the air politically. We've seen Mike Carney's Liberal Party in Canada, and we've seen Kamala National winning in Trinidad. So let's bring some of that change into Barbados and get a win. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome
the bee's hope is a man named Chad. Had fancy jobs, the suit looked not too bad. He talked real slick when the media came, but on the streets, he'll forget our names. Potholes deep and the taps run dry. We call his name, but he won't reply. In 7 years, not a thing has changed. Now the people rise, 'cause we've been estranged. Time for a change, let the old ways go. We see the people rise in the one we know. She walks with us and feels our pain. Felicia Dujon is her name. Vision strong and hands that heal. She listens well and she keeps it real. So gather round, everyone come forth. Vote for Dujon and St. James North. Chad's got stats and fancy plans, but we still have empty pots and pans. He's in the papers, he's on the news, but in our hood, we just feel used. Dujon's walk, whole town square. Helping kids with love and care. She don't just talk, she does the work. Lifting voices while Chad would shirk. Time for a change, let the old ways go. We We see the light in the one we
All right,
know.
Miss Felicia Dujon,
She'll offer
you've been very busy walking around the constituency of St. James North. Could you tell the viewers a little bit about what you've been experiencing so far?
Good evening to our viewers. Good evening, everyone. And of course, I have to say a special good evening to the constituents of St. James North. I wish to share with the public, with the Barbadian public, that the people of St. James North is prepared for the election, though it was called on us very ad hoc manner. But I believe that the people are prepared. The concerns are very valid. So for the last few weeks, we have been engaging constituents of St. James North. And I believe that the concerns that we have raised are valid concerns. They are citizens of this country. They are law-abiding citizens of the country, and they deserve the best representation that is required. It's kind of this very concerning. And it reminds me very similar to what happened in your constituency, Conrad.
Yes.
St. James North,
St. George. No.
St. George North, where you have someone that did very little for the constituency, and that individual was placed by someone else. And we're seeing something very similar may happen in St. James North. And I think the people of St. James North constituency is very concerned about that. They have had the concerns primarily with the current representative who has now resigned. And they're concerned that a very similar matter may occur, that they may have someone that may do the same kinds of interactions with them and abandon them.
Oh.
And so when you have a government that does not consider the calls or the cries or the concerns of its citizens, particularly from that constituency, then I believe it's very problematic. So for the past few weeks, I have experienced, it's very concerning. And I believe that if the government took the time to go to its constituents and not wait until the by-election to be called, they would have understood why the citizens of this country, and by extension, the residents of St. James North, and why they feel the way that they feel right now. I have met residents that are considering to never vote again because of what we have experienced. And it's very sad because it places anyone, not just myself, but anyone who decides to run in the constituency because of the bad experiences that someone has or had, you find that those lived experience becomes very problematic for those residents. And so it's what I have seen, and what this government is doing is that it seems to be that they basically gaslighted the residents. They knew what the residents have endured with the past representative, and they're bringing someone else, not taking in consideration that the first thing I should have done as the leader of a party is to go in and ask the kinds of questions that are required. That persons, what are some of the major concerns that they have before I make the kinds of decisions that I'm making right now. So the past few weeks, the interactions that I've had with the residents have taught me very valuable lessons. So it's a lesson that I'm learning while I'm on the journey, that people are human beings and they do not forget the experiences that they've had. And so I have a lot to learn from that experience. The elders are teaching me as I'm going along. And I was in the constituents, I've been in the constituents practically every day. And today, what we experienced was remarkable.
Mm-hmm.
Our constituents are very loving and kind people. It was very hot today. And they saw myself and our comrade was walking around, and they began offering water.
Excellent.
So when we want that house, the other house is already open waiting for us to help us with water. Because I believe that this by-election is not about the Democratic Labour Party. It's not about Felicia Dujon. It is about the people's voice. And the people will speak when the time is right.
Okay, we're on the topic of water. Yesterday, you and I,
We're
some other
at
comments, went into Reservoir Road. So here's a clip, a video from Road yesterday.
this morning, and we are here with the constituents. And they have explained that they've had a number of challenges with the meters to the end. So you find persons, they may not know when the pipe has been burst or anything of that nature. What I want citizens to look at is the condition of the reservoir. Look at this. This is what residents have been dealing with for the past 12 years, 7 years, and the same government. And these are the kind, this is a reservoir. This is where they get the water from. And look at the conditions of that. So if you can take a look, you will see in terms of what is happening. And we're hoping that someone can take a look into it, but also look in terms of what the residents are saying about the area, that they need that kind of support. They need the intervention. And this is what representation is about, listening to the voices of the people and ensuring that we do what is required of us. So I am here and I'm hoping that some kind of matters will intervene on that kind of matter. The water authority would have to come and take a look. Perhaps they would see that it needs some cleaning up and take the considerations of the concerns of the residents at Reservoir Street.
Wow.
So we interacted with some of the constituents on that street yesterday, and some of them mentioned the issues that they were experiencing with the water meters. Could you tell us a little bit about that conversation?
Well, you know, the reality is that these are residents that have had the same representation for the past 7 years or more, because the Labour Party or the government, the current government, has been the representation for this constituents. They've had concerns in terms of the meters. So you find persons that live very far from the meters. And it's like every ordinary citizen, if you live in a particular environment or a particular area, you want to have your meters as close by as possible in case if the pipe may burst or something may happen to it, you want to know. And one of the things that I found speaking with residents is that the dismissive nature of their representative. And I'm hoping that I could be, in terms of more of a listener, which is what I've been doing thus far. I need to listen more and try to see what are the concerns of residents, because if that issue is continued, people just really need persons to advocate on their behalf. This is what a representative should be doing, that people have concerns, they voted you in, and if they have concerns about a water meter, see what can be done, because obviously they can't write directly. Well, they can, but it's your responsibility to act on their behalf as a government minister. It's something that you want to do. And the issues, and what I found very remarkable, not only of the people of St. James North, but most residents that I went across, not only that area, but also in the constituents of St. Peter, is that people do not want handouts from politicians. The majority of voters and residents are hardworking people. And as far as they're concerned, they just need you to intervene on matters that they may not necessarily be able to do on the same day, on the same time, or have the authority to do that. They just need you to advocate on their behalf. Speak on their behalf. Do not dismiss them and tell them that you do not have time to deal with that at this moment. Because these are serious issues. And I think that what has happened over the years is that people take people's vote for granted. These are people's human right, and they take their time to make a decision to say, well, this is the person that I want to act upon my behalf. So if I have issues, I should be able to come to you and say, well, Felicia or Ms. Dujon, I have had some challenges with my water meter. How can you help me? There's no follow, there's no calls, nothing. We cannot continue that way. And as I said before, it's very interesting that the by-elections is called, and the government's candidate had an entire year to go through the constituents. And these are not issues that I've heard him raise. As far as he's concerned, he's considering a marriage on the 21st. I don't know where that marriage, if they're going to have a bus. I don't know what is going to happen. But these are serious issues that while you're engaging people and courting people, did you ask about those issues? Or is it something that it seems that they're not taking those matters seriously? It almost seems that it is an entitlement.
Mhm.
So I came over a year and I'm entitled to be your representative. I am entitled because I've been getting all those entitlement from the time I returned from the wonderful life that I had before in Switzerland or wherever. But the people of St. James North understand that these are human rights and these are citizen rights issues, like everyday situations. People need to know these are basic issues that people should know and raise those issues because they have children, they have grandparents, became a lot of elders in the community, which is another matter that I will speak on some point. But I think these are the kinds of issues that we need to speak about. And I believe that the government and its entitlement, I think that that's a very serious concern for residents.
Okay, we have a comment here online from Patricia Calendar. Mrs. Dujon, I'm from St. James North. Haven't voted since David Thompson time because I'm fed up. But I'm considering you. How do you feel hearing such a comment like that?
And I want to thank her for that. The reason why is because it's encouraging. It's very encouraging because when you decide to represent persons, you're not doing it. It's a sacrifice that you're doing for someone, that you're telling them that I will fight for you. And hearing such encouraging thoughts that she's even considering, it makes me feel good. It makes me feel good that I am actually doing something right, that I am on the right path. And what is also important is that thus far, what I've been trying to do, and I would like the residents of St. James North to know that as well, I will try to meet everyone, every single constituent. I have very little legs, but I'm trying my best to get to you. And I know that some persons are waiting for me in Rockdondo and Western. I will be there. I will be there very shortly. I know that my team have gone out and given out my information. You are free to call me. There are some persons who did contact me and I've met them in person. It's interesting that you speak to someone on the phone and then you meet them in person.
On the very next day.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm very happy about that. So these are some of the things that I think that we need to change how politicians are perceived. We've had politicians that have had this sense of entitlement and not service. We need to change that. And so this is what we need to do as a party to show persons come to work. It is good to have a little fete, a birthday or Christmas party for children, but we need to work. This is what we're here to do. It's a job. And when you see a by-election, it's not only that you've given me a vote, but you're interviewing me. You're seeing if I'm the best person to serve you because it is a job that we basically contested for.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important that people see that, and we don't want people to look at it and, minimize it as if it is always just some party fete that we're having and we want to call somebody and marry them. No, this is serious business. Serious business. And the business of the people is what we need to do.
Okay, so we had a mass canvas on Saturday and you visited the WIM. So we're going to have a little clip from the WIM.
Do you agree?
It has been a very encouraging journey for this morning to getting equipment and getting a preparation and coming into the constituency. We're actually at the welcome and very heavy in play, but at the same time, the constituents are there and they are sharing their concerns. They seem to be very disheartened by the representation that they've had in terms of the infrastructure, the roads, as we can see, very badly paved. We've had elderlies in the community that speaks about the lighting. In terms of transportation, which is a very serious concern. You have persons walking 2 miles just to get transportation, public transportation. They're very serious concerns. And what is very heartening to me is that we've had this representation for the last 12 years by the same representative. And so we need to start looking in terms of how we can help those individuals. They are Barbadians, they are citizens, and they deserve the respect, they deserve the dignity, and they deserve better representation.
Okay, so after walking through the rim on Saturday, what would you say, what was the feedback that you received from the constituents?
I think the constituents were very open and honest, and we had to listen to them. The grievances that they had, not only in terms of the roads, young persons' employment, even to the fact that there was not much activity in the constituents. It seems that most of the activities is centrally located in certain areas, and some persons have just been forgotten. And I think that's what we need to look at, that every vote is a person that has a home, that lives somewhere, that you need to go and do the intervention that is required. But what is also concerning is the lighting concern, because even though you see we were located at the whim there, you see there was not much lighting. And I think that is where a representative comes in and intervene. You contact the authorities that is responsible so that people can have the basic amenities in the area. And if I may ask, and if I may share, even as not only a woman, but men, in an environment where crime has increased, people are concerned to be walking on streets with no lighting facilities. People are concerned that there's no devotion in the area. People are concerned that their own residents have been sexually violated. And that is concerning for me, even as a woman, a mother. These are concerns, these are serious concerns. So my question is, what has been done? And because of the person that I am, the individual that I am, I will continue to advocate and ensure that things are done the right way. We cannot continue. It seems that once, and I do not want to use the line because it seems very cliched. Once you get my vote, then I'm good. Give me the vote and I good. That's what it seems like. Give me the vote and I good. It's not give me the vote and I work for you. Or give me the job and I work for you, but give me the vote and I good, because that's what I'm seeing. That's what I'm hearing from the campaign right now. I'm hearing about the big man to do what? The big man to do what? It's almost like psychological warfare. We need you to work. We don't care how big or small you are, because people know I'm small. A lot of persons met me, they're like, we didn't know you were that small. Yes, I am very small, but that does not mean I can't do the job. So I don't have to be a big enforcing presence to do what is right. And there's some of the concerns that I have. There's a sense of entitlement. I am entitled to return after the year and get a ministerial position. I can become a senator. Now I want to be your rep. And you don't have a choice because we're getting married on the 21st.
All right.
We're getting married on the 21st. So I don't know if the people of St. James know that there's a pre-arranged marriage for them. But these are the kinds, the entitlement. Which is very concerning for me.
We have a comment online. Lord, please bless this young woman and grace her with your love in St. James Nerve. Speak to the heart of the people of St. James Nerve. Vote Felicia Dujon for proper representation. Thank you, Esther Blue. Thank you. So many of your constituents may not know of Felicia Dujon. You will be the first female to run in the constituency for Democratic Labour Party. So as a woman, what changes are you looking to bring to the residents of St. James Nerve?
Well, that's a good question. And even today, I thought about it as well, that sometimes people do not understand that as a female politician, your journey is a little bit different from your male counterpart. You have to be the politician, you still have to be the mother, you still have to be everything else. While your male counterpart, he just has to show up and get married on the 21st. And that is the kinds of concerns that people don't understand, that it takes and it requires also a different perspective in terms of how you interact with your constituents. You want to represent your constituents, but you also want to ensure that you're doing a job. You're going to remain focused, you're going to be professional, because sometimes being a woman in politics, it comes with all the dynamics as well, that people have certain expectations that you have to be soft. In some cases, it all depends on what the expectations are. So every constituent will have a different expectation of what it is to be a woman. And today I met a resident, I think it's on Cemetery Lane, and she said, I'm glad we have a woman, because we see things different and we work things different. Because when mom comes home, when the mother comes home, you know what happens? There's order. Everybody has to do. So it's not that we were saying that, but it's just that I want to ensure that I take care. There's a caring nature about me. I think residents should know, and it's not only because I'm a woman, but also that we tend to care a lot more for persons. And I met a lot of young men as well that have never voted before. And I asked the question, why did you vote? Well, they said, Mom, nobody really encouraged me to vote. And then I had to explain what are the reasons why you should vote. And what I tend to do is not to tell people, well, of course I should tell them to vote for me, but I tell them to look at your candidates, see what the positions that they take. Do not just vote for someone because you like them. Of course, you should vote for me if you like me, but see the positions that I've taken over the years, dealing with families, dealing with children, dealing with women, dealing with the society, dealing with rights. So while I was speaking with some young men that have never voted before, they were like, well, we don't get too much involved in politics. So I told them, what do you think about the tint law? And then they said, oh, yes, we don't like that law. It's very oppressive. I said, because government has that right and control and power. And I think it's always good to educate persons so that they can make good judgment. And I think that's what I've been doing. It's not only that I am going to the constituency, but I'm also showing them how government works. And that you're not just only going to select me as your candidate or representative to be in your constituents to help you. But when I go into Parliament, then I also explain to you what is happening and what is your position on that. I met a young lady that owned a hair salon, and she said, I voted before, but I'm not doing that again. I said, oh, okay, well, do you have children? And she said, yes. I said, well, you're not really voting for them, for yourself, but you're voting for them. Because we don't know how long we're on this earth. I can vote today and the next day I pass, God forbid. But your vote is what's going to determine the kind of governance we have in the country. And I think this is what's important. So not only am I out there as a politician, I'm also there as a teacher. I will always be a teacher. So I'm also educating persons about their fundamental right, that democratic right that you have, that you do not allow someone to come and buy your vote for $500 or a t-shirt or a FET. But it's the value that it has, that it precedes you. It will impact your generations to come because of the laws that may come that may impact their lives. And that I think that's what has been tremendous for me.
Okay. So you're mostly known nationally for the work that you've been doing in education.
Yeah.
But I first heard about Felicia Dujon with your intervention with the Child Rights Bill. Could you tell us a little bit about that experience?
Yes, I think that's I've always been an advocate, and an advocate is not someone that, we attack every policy as civil societies do. But what it also allows us to do is to do research on the topic and get introspective on the various topics. And the Child Protection Bill came at a time while I was doing quite a number of research on children's rights and domestic violence, because what we were observing is that when we have laws for domestic violence, we exclude children. Children become what we call the silent voices, because children observe those violence. And in some cases, they become victims of that violence as well. And so when I heard about the Child Protection Bill, it drew my interest. But also, what also sparked my interest is that when we had the IDP survey in schools, And that was very, very remarkable in its sense, but it was something what we call a defining moment for me when I felt that this is a government infringing on the rights of children, but at the same time wanting to pass a law to protect children.
Yeah.
And I for that, I think it really awakened the deepest, what we say, our deepest core. And it brought a fire in me that said, no, I need to tell the public that the government is infringing on your rights as a parent and infringing on the rights of children, that children have the right to privacy. And privacy doesn't mean that you can't go in the rooms or anything like that, but a government cannot pass a survey without informing parents, removing parents. Some children were traumatized on that matter. It was a legal matter. And it was interesting that the government decided to apologize and they still kept the same minister. So all of those matters are matters I think that Barbadians need to be very vigilant of. And I remember at the time when I spoke about it, I received very harsh criticisms for it, that I am offending the government. I remember my name being called, not my name, but my persona where I work was called in Parliament. The speaker had to caution the minister at the time. And so it was a very scary period as well, because I was called the most dangerous woman in Barbados. I don't know, I've been less than 5 feet, I don't know, but I think what was very important is that I educated people on their rights. And I think that was important, that I had to share with parents that this is the situation and we needed to intervene and you can decide on that. So I made it my duty to educate parents so that they could make the decision, and not only the government, but everyone should know. But the other factor of it is to inform the government that you're doing something wrong. Perhaps they did not know they were doing something wrong and had to apologize later, but I had to inform them that what you're doing right now will have dire repercussions and consequences on the lives of children and parents. So that is where I believe. And I believe when I joined the Democratic Labour Party, I said, no, I can't be part of a government that violates the rights of children and supports it. And I think that's what really propelled me to what I'm doing today.
Okay. There have been many female politicians before, but we are not accustomed to that female that is a wife, a mother, a professional, that type of female politician that does everything. So could you tell us, how do you balance work, home, children? How do you balance everything?
There's no balance. There's no balance. Because when we say balance, it means that you have to give equal time for certain parts of your life. And I think as women, we never get that. We never get that balance that society expects us to have. And so when you get criticisms and you get people making a mockery of your work or making a mockery of you, they don't understand what is happening in the background. That, did Felicia sleep today? Did she have a meal? How did she do it? And I think there was a period of time that we were doing the canvassing that I couldn't even feel my legs. And I said, God, you have to take over. You have to take over, because I can't do it physically. I can't go over. And something else I need to add is that it takes a village.
Yeah.
It really takes a village. So there are times that family members, friends, comrades would come in and step and help. Somebody would do the cooking. I mean, you know that my children think it's too spicy and we prefer yours, but somebody would do the cooking. Somebody would help, and my spouse, my husband would help. And my children, I have 2 boys, a 4 and an 8-year-old, and I would explain to them what is happening. And so if I'm late or coming home at late, I would explain, well, this is where I'll be. If you turn on to the link I gave you, you'll see me there. And I remember my son one time, my oldest son saw me on TikTok and he said, Mommy, that's you. I said, yes, this is, because sometimes children don't understand and they want the time. So I try to make as much time with them. But what I will say is that women do not get that balance that we require, because if you look at it, you're seeing a male counterpart, you're seeing your male opponent. And the question is, what is his dynamic as compared to Felicia's? And people do not understand that. So there's really never that balance, because the other factor is that you have the government knew this would have happened. So the opponent already had an entire year to canvass and get himself ready, while I only have 3 weeks, 4 weeks, more or less. And so I have to try to balance. But I am thankful, and I have to say this, I am very thankful for everyone that has stepped in and helped, from my colleagues at work to my children, my family, and to the party. Thank you very much. And to the constituents and to the ordinary citizen that I meet. Every time they see me, they say, thank you, keep going. Look, a bottle of water. And that has helped. That has helped.
You know, I don't know. You know, all I do is sit down here, they go around.
That's okay.
I
Take
watch
that nice
paperwork and then,
Take the nice breeze.
yeah,
That's good. That's good. So tell them you want to come out and vote for.
I was saying to myself, but you're coming living up inside there.
Mhm.
A millionaire man. They would never do
They
it.
would never do that. Never do that.
They would never do this. This road into in 56 years.
Wow. But they're gonna do it now,
Gordon
right?
Hayes and all of them. The only boy do something with this road was Frank Walker.
Yes.
This one ain't do nothing.
Nothing.
Gordon Hayes ain't do nothing. None of them ain't do nothing with this road. It's only because he live up in there, he is on the board.
Oh. So he doing it for you now.
He is on the behavior then. So that's why they're doing up in there. For the stuff and shame they're doing here too.
I will go up there and have a look.
Huh?
I will go up there and have a look.
Yeah,
I'm gonna take a walk.
they're legging up in there. But I have to do it to get there.
Yes, they have to.
Yeah.
But I'll see you later. I'm
Oh,
gonna go up there and have a look. Reservoir.
Reservoir Road.
Reservoir Road, yeah.
Okay. All right. Tell me what's happening here today.
Well, I'm at Reservoir Road today and I'm with the residents, but the residents to me are like family. I've known most of them for many years, coming through the areas, buying lunch, going with my colleagues from the university. So many of them are here. They know me. As I've seen in many in the constituency itself, as if it's not for family, it's for work. So I just come by to visit and to let them and to encourage them to come out and vote. We need as many persons to come out and peacefully vote, because I know a lot of them have been disenfranchised and discouraged by the representation that they have. So I'm just giving them the kind of momentum that is needed, the encouragement that is needed. And then they're very excited and overwhelmed. Some of them did not know that it was me until they saw me coming in. So I'm very happy about that. And if you're here, you can interview them as well. And you can ask.
Sure. No problem at all. Your thoughts? Felicia Dujon is in the area, and this is one of a strong. Well, it's a seat that the BLP has won often. I just want to get your thoughts about.
You're strong. Hold on, let's see. But here for the guy up here. Hey. This one. Yes, or the chain one gun for me. Get a gun. The government got the money. So what we put here for the next sense? You was about that. Real bad. I see roads and Barbados saying getting there. But what you all get to the main road that want to? One road get to one here. For no reason at all. That you doing it. And you got the work you want to do it. You going down the station here yourself. So bad I know this. That other fellow go here. Yeah, Jordan. I don't know when I get that from. That's the honest truth. You want real bad. But what's up? You wrote that when you drive the car to get back in pieces. The road should be attacking first and help to show you something different.
So the roads is a major issue for you in
What you
St. James now?
I think you put the car walk and try to flex on the car. Yes, the road on the real bad. Real bad over here. Jordan up here going between a gap above where he come from. A little road and fixing it. And big road that big trees burn all the time. He ain't fixing it. I don't want to be fast to see it. At least I'm around the they can see what they're blending. Coming around. We just do the road here and you go across the even before you get to across. Ain't for do that road. Then you pass into the road they go. You go to your Hamilton. Swing in front of it. That's when we have them just get fixed. It's for us ain't for do up for them. And they take it back up. And they take back up again. Then we go to the get me first to the road. Right? I think they can do a good job.
When last you saw your representative in this area? When was last you saw him?
Vem, você vai assim, faz the hit force. Don't come in. Just because I think that's bad to get it. And that's not good. Rod did a bad job, man. He took over from Rod. What Barry to say? Barry to tell you? Do you want to work? When you examine against the vehicle, you're going to shake your pants. That's bad behavior. Towards disrespect.
All right, so in both these videos, the constituents spoke about the horrible roads in the constituency. Elaborate on this, please.
It's abandoned. It's abandoned. This is the most simple way that I can put it. And I think I gave the example where I went to the zone and I saw the candidate for the government driving in a four-wheel SUV because he could not walk on that road. And if he does, I don't know how, but it's a horrible, and it's not the only one. And it seems that, and it's very, to some extent, it's very disappointing to the outgoing MP that you are leaving after 12 years and your residents and your constituents are very, very, disheartened by your representation of them. And it's very saddening, but I also find it very strange that the government believes that after such a horrible representation of that constituency, that they will bring another entitled individual in the constituency. So it's very sad. It's a very sad situation, very sad state of affairs, because what happens then is that the constituents, they may not feel that we will come to help them, but I want to allow them to be rest assured that you have seen what this government and the representative has done to your constituency. And we can almost guarantee, just with patterns of behavior, we have seen a pattern after 12 years. This is their representation, which tells me that either two things. Either the rep was telling the leader that things are good and merry down there, and she never went, or the leader does not understand that their rep was not doing a good job to bring someone else in there. So the reality is that what we're seeing is that we have a government that is disconnected to the constituents. They're so disconnected that they believe that they can bring a replacement that will transform the entire constituency after 12 years. How do you think the people actually feel? Did you even speak to them? Did you interact with the residents there? Did you at least? And I think that's what is the difference as well. And I need to add on that as well. Our political leader have been following me everywhere I go. And he makes it his duty to respond and ask questions of the constituents. How is the candidate approaching you? How is the candidate approaching you? Because he cares. This is someone that knows that when I am elected, that he will also follow up. And perhaps this is what has happened, that the leader of the government did not recognize that something is not happening in this constituency. Let me go and see what the representative is doing in that constituency. And these are the kinds of realities. So bringing someone else, residents of St. James North, I can almost guarantee that pattern of behavior will continue under this government, because you can see the leadership of abandonment. Give me your vote so I could be entitled. That's what it is under this government. Give me your vote so I can be entitled to bring whoever I want back into the same constituency that I abandoned for 12 years so that he can marry you on March 21st.
I'm going to read some comments here online. So we have from Adriano, the time for change is now. And from Esther Blue, Felicia Dujon, you're such a beautiful soul. And from Shirley, Mrs. Dujon, you will be right next to Mr. Thorne in Parliament. In Jesus' name, you will win that seat in St. James North. Beautiful. So you're the one more. From Margaret Harris, having the common touch is better than Geneva ILO trade politics that don't translate. So you're the spokesperson for education. Could you tell us a bit about the work that you have done so far in education?
Well, I had an interesting experience today. I was driving on the East Coast, and I think I shared some photos of that you will see what was left after that. And I met someone was there as well, taking photos of what was left and video of what transpired after. You need to see what it looks like. I will try to share it soon. And in having the conversation, the parents spoke and told me that, we just had a conversation. Are you a parent? Do you have children? I said, yes. And I said, well, I'm glad that the children have security at the schools now, because it was a major concern for me that children did not have that kind of safety at schools. And so I felt very proud that a parent could tell me thank you, that they feel comfortable now that their children have security at schools. And I was very adamant at the time that every child needs to feel safe at school. So it's not only about the children learning, but the children need to be learning in an environment which is safe and conducive. Those environmental problems continue to persist even now with those ministers. Right now, we only have one, because we only have one minister at this moment, because their interests are really about entitlement and winning a seat, not about the business of the people. And so all of those matters, I think it's very important that when we look at education, we have to look at it in terms of children's rights, their right to education. And the right to education does not mean just being able to read and write and be literate about certain matters, but also to be in an environment which is safe for learning, which also includes that we have to respect our teachers. We have to respect the rights of teachers. We have to ensure that our teachers are also comfortable, that they receive the benefits. And so when you find, again, a minister that feels that sense of entitlement, that they're the big man and can push this entire chess on entire education system or entire education personnel. And I, as I said before, when I heard the slogan, the big man slogan, I said it's political warfare, because you want to give that image that, this is who I am and this is what I can do. We already have a big woman. Why would we want another big man? And the society, and it's not in terms of the physical component, it's just in terms of how they feel that they can encroach on the rights of citizens and tell you how to, that this is me and I'm entitled to do anything I want in this government, in this country, because I have the majority. And so we have to be very, very cautious about such attitudes towards citizens, such that citizens feel an element of fear. They do not want to speak against this government. They do not want to speak in a sense that they will be ostracized or victimized in any way. And I'm glad, in a sense, I am proud of the stance that the teachers union have taken on behalf of teachers. And I've said it before, let us be clear, I have no part in that. My part really is to tell teachers, yes, you have your right. And as a human rights advocate, I would say that you have a right to defend if anyone violates your right, including the government. And I think that's my position on that. And we should always support teachers. I am not being biased because I am a teacher, but I think we should always, because they are the ones who are nurturing our generations. And I think the minister, well, the past minister in and of itself, I think it was a poor judgment call, very poor judgment call to make that. And I think it's a learning process for everyone. We all Barbadians. And I think we need to treat everyone, regardless of the position we have in society. And we do not want to abuse that authority that we been granted. And I think it was an abuse of power, what was said.
Okay, so we met two teachers, well, three, in the constituency yesterday evening, and they were sharing some of the grievances that they have. As a teacher and as someone as spokesperson in education, could you give the viewers examples of some of the grievances that teachers have on a daily basis?
Well, I think that it's very open that we know that teachers do not receive the kind of support that they need. I think when a teacher comes in and support, and I will continue to be adamant about that, if the ministry is receiving $6 million, it's important and it's imperative that it is allocated where it's supposed to be allocated. So if we're seeing that certain schools have been underfunded, and this is why we're seeing children are not performing the way that they should, because it's been the allocations of resources are not being equally distributed. Something is happening that we need to know. In terms of teachers, I think teachers do deserve the time. They do deserve the time. After 15 years, many persons that I've taught before understands what it takes. After a period of time, you become mentally exhausted. And on an everyday basis, you can almost imagine, and I tell people that I have two young men at home, two young boys at home, and I could imagine a teacher in a classroom, and sometimes those classrooms are overcrowded. And these are the kinds of concerns that you teachers have. And I think it's important that we support teachers through their unions as well. And it is their right. And it is a profession that I think has been ignored. What is very interesting, and I may seem political as well, but I remember when the minister came on board, we were very happy because we have someone that we didn't want before. So we have a new minister, but the minister said that he's going to applaud the teachers, send a letter to them the very next week. I don't know if that letter is still there somewhere, but I don't know if they received the letter, and how highly he thought about teachers. I was like, that's a good thing. But then weeks later, I'm hearing that this, we don't want that kind of entitlement, that I don't have to listen to you because I'm the big man, and I think that's very important, that we have to look at civil societies and civil servants with respect and integrity. And I think that was really a poor sense of judgment, how we treat each other. As Barbadians, we have to treat each other with respect and dignity. And I think every profession, from teachers, garbage collectors, fisherfolk, gardeners, everyone should be treated with equal respect. Why? Because it's an honest learning. It's an honest earning. And I think it's very important that we look at that as well.
Okay, all right. My last question for you is a question that I've asked the other two candidates before you came. And that question is, why politics? Why have you entered into the world of politics?
If you asked me that question earlier today, I would not have been able to really answer it. But today, I really understood why I'm doing what I'm doing now. It is about the people, but it's also about to give people hope, because people have been given the perception that all politicians are corrupt and all politicians violate the rights of others. And I had to explain to a young man that you haven't met me before. I don't, if I can say that, I don't stand for foolishness.
Mhm.
You know, some of us were, some of us, and perhaps I tend to say that some of us grew up in a church. So we have certain types of ethos that comes with that. And I think that's what it is about, that we understand that caring for people is a noble cause. You're sacrificing your sleep, the time you're supposed to be balancing your family and your friends, the time to, we don't get to go out and fet.
Mhm.
Well, everybody's out there fetting on Heroes Day where we were, working on behalf of the people. And it's not that we don't get the time, but I think it's important that when you work on behalf of people, you're doing a noble cause, because people, as far as they're concerned, they're God's children,
Mhm.
and we have to take care of them while we're here, the little time that we're here.
Okay, so Grainger, I'm coming to you now. So as a former police officer and currently a criminal lawyer, what are your thoughts about the high level of crime currently in the country?
The high level of crime as it stands right now must not be seen only as a security issue or from a security standpoint, but also a social issue. It is disconcerting that the ordinary citizens feel so more scared now than they were 8 years ago in Barbados. It feels like we have lost our moral compass in this country. And one of the reasons could be that we need to build strong families. We always come along here that it takes a village to raise a child.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems as though that has somewhat shifted. It is all right to talk about guns don't walk and guns don't talk. But when there is no, when people feel that sense of hopelessness, then they resort to anything. And I think that the absence of hope, the absence of jobs, and the lack of opportunities for people, all these are contributory factors to the level of crime that is prevailing this society today. Not so long ago, we had an Attorney General of Barbados, Adriel Braffett. And not so long ago, while he was Attorney General, we had an opposition shadow minister who had all the answers to the problems that Barbados crime face. And today, now as the Attorney General, but before that, if there was a cockfight or dog fight, he called for the resignation and the firing of Mr. Adriel Braffett. But today, what we are seeing is something worse than what it was back then between the tenure of Mr. Braffett. So I think that crime needs to, as I said, it doesn't exist in a vacuum, and it calls for strong governmental involvement. And if one remember that Good Friday, when a telephone call was made by some fellow citizen, and the police were asked to, they didn't perform the duty that their were supposed to perform. So again, with that level of disregard, one can say, for the police, but it sends a message to those persons with a criminal intention that we can do what we want. Boss can make them feel bad, right? So I think that crime needs a handle. It needs to be really gotten hold of by the powers.
Right. What are your thoughts about the high level of crime currently in the country?
I worry about crime all the time. I, as a teacher, I got a lot of children moving around this country on a daily basis. From my children from before, they're still my children all right now. And the crime issue might be concentrated in specific areas right now. But my real concern is, if not dealt with, it could escalate, it could expand, and it could embrace other areas. And maybe a lot of Barbadians still feel comfortable because they haven't had the experience in their backyard. But we all must be concerned and not wait for it to come to our backyard in case we don't live in the areas that are high crime areas. The reality is, I am concerned. I have not experienced the gunfire in my particular community, but I see it expanding. I see the explosion of this crime issue. And I haven't heard about any travel advisories or anything. Well, my concern is, we have an industry called tourism. And if something is not done about crime, we will regret it, because that one leg we are standing on is going to get broken, or it's going to get cut off. The reality is that crime is a serious issue. I remember years ago, with far less crime, there used to be travel advisories on this country. And when one tourist is injured, the whole country, you hear how dangerous Barbados is to travel to. My concern is with the level of lawlessness and the high level of gun violence in Barbados. It could easily affect the one industry that we have in this country that is kind of holding us up. So I think we really badly need to do something with the issue of crime. I believe it can be tackled and wrestled to the ground.
All right, Felicia, what are your thoughts about the high level of crime in the country?
It's disheartening. I think the worst devastating part is that children are being murdered. As a mother of boys, every time I see a young man being killed and murdered, it affects me, because it brings back the concern that it could be my children too. Cool. And I think every mother feels that way as well. And I think we have seen too many mothers sharing tears because of what was happening. But we see, as I said before, a government that is dismissive, because rather than deal with the matters and implement policies that would protect citizens, it is their responsibility for national protection and citizenry protection. They're casting blame. They're casting blame on mothers. They're casting blames on citizens not reporting. They're doing everything else, pointing fingers everywhere else, but to do what is required of them, to do the job that persons elected them to do. And so I believe that every citizen at this moment, and it also brings to the fact that sometimes persons may say, well, it doesn't affect me because it's not in my community, it's not in my home, but it doesn't take much time for that to happen. And even the residents of St. James North have experienced it. I think sometime last week, there was a robbery that involved a gun. And so it comes very close to home at times. And so for the families that have been grieving from such violences, I think the government has attempted to remove itself from its responsibilities. And I think at some point citizens will take the government to task. They will eventually. Well, this is the aftermath of what I observed on my way home today after canvassing. This is what that presented looks like. This is what the Baptist Park looks like after these. And again, it's just the responsibility of the government. We have an irresponsible government. I don't think. This is a government that speaks about climate change and keeping the country clean and being responsible. And this is what we're seeing. This is what we're seeing. And I hope that the government looks into this matter and that the environment is cleaned up by tomorrow. It's just very, very disappointing. Very disappointing. So we have to treat the environment with respect. We have to treat the environment with respect.
She asked the Prime Minister, asked the citizens to leave their bamzi in the road, but she left all the garbage on the road up East Coast. Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard from our new candidates. You've heard from Ms. Felicia Dujon, the candidate for St. James North. Thank you for joining us tonight. And see you next week.
Ooh, ooh, ooh. The bee's hope is a man named Chad. Had fancy jobs, the suit looked not too bad. He talked real slick when the media came, but on the streets, he'll forget our names. Potholes deep and the taps run dry. We call his name, but he won't reply. In 7 years, not a thing has changed. Now the people rise, 'cause we've been estranged. Time for a change, let the old ways go. We see the light in the one we know. She walks with us and feels our pain. Felicia Dujon is her name. Vision strong and hands that heal. She listens well and she keeps it real. So gather round, everyone come forth. Vote for Dujon in St. James North. Chad's got stats and fancy plans, but we still have empty pots and pans. He's in the papers, he's on the news, but in our hood, we just feel used. Dujon's walk, whole town square, helping kids with love and care. She don't just talk, she does the work, lifting voices while Chad would shirk. Time for a change, let the old ways go. We see the light in the one we know. She'll walk for us through the sun and rain. Dujon hears and feels your pain. Vision strong, attention surreal. She listens close and she keeps it real. Dujon on the lower house floor. No more neglect, no more spin. We want a leader who fights to win. Not for power, not for show, but for St. James North, row by row. Final time for a change, let the truth be loud. We're rising up and we're standing proud. With Dujon's light, she'll lead your way to brighter nights and better days. Vision strong and words that heal. She listens well and she keeps it real. So cast your vote and we'll go forth. Dujon will fight for you in St. James North. Felicia Dujon is her name. Vision strong and hands that heal. She listens well and she keeps it real. So gather round, everyone come forth. Vote for Dujon in St. James North.